Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join us for Vandis's webinar with our partner Horizon3. At today's webinar, Josh Knox, Senior Cybersecurity Technologist and Channel SC at Horizon3, will provide an overview of the Horizon3 solution and then follow with a deeper dive demonstration into the NodeZero platform to show you how NodeZero can uncover the truly exploitable weaknesses in any organization's internal, external, and cloud infrastructures. Joining Josh is Eric Rupert, Channel Sales Manager at Horizon3, and Ryan Young, Vandis' CTO, who will assist with questions. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A window, and we'll either address them as we go or at the end of the session. We also have a few polling questions today that we hope you'll take part in. And a quick reminder to visit vandis.com/events for a list of other upcoming events that you might be interested in. For those of you who are new to Vandis, Vandis specializes in optimizing and securing hybrid network infrastructures to achieve maximum value for our clients. With our proven process anchored by our industry knowledge, we deliver solutions and successful outcomes which cultivate strong connections and trust with our customers. For over 40 years, Vandis has delivered comprehensive strategies for secure IT infrastructures. We have partnered with Horizon3 so that our client security teams can regularly conduct pen tests from different perspectives to fully assess their organization's security readiness and fix weaknesses before attackers can take advantage of them. By attending today's webinar and demo, you should walk away with an understanding of the benefits of autonomous pen testing and the value it can provide your organization. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Josh.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming this morning. Today, first I'll just introduce myself. My name is Josh Knox. I am a senior solutions architect at Horizon3, and we are going to look this morning a little deeper into the product, and we're going to talk about closing the vulnerability loop with NodeZero and the Find, Fix, Verify loop. I am joined by my colleague and friend, Eric Rupert. Eric, I'll let you briefly introduce yourself real quick before I jump right in.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. Eric Rupert. I'm the channel sales manager for our East business here at Horizon3. Been here about 9 months, and thank you.
All right. So let's jump right in here. First thing we want to talk about this morning before we get into it is institutional challenges with security and with pen testing. So one of the first challenges here is actually improving the security posture over time without arduous and cumbersome tools and processes. You know, in our security practices, we have so many tools that we're trying to deal with, and trying to keep them up to date, trying to use them properly can be a real process, and over time kind of get out of hand. And validating true vulnerabilities that exist in your environment can be very difficult, even with all of those tools. There's false positives, there's just a lot of times, and you're inundated with all kinds of alerting coming in, and trying to figure out what is the real problem and what needs to be prioritized is very difficult. It's also very difficult many times to prove to your business owners what the concrete business impact is of those vulnerabilities, and being able to prove to them that you need to put time and resources behind particular findings that you find in an organization, because you've got to be able to prove their impact to also be able to prove that you need to put money and effort behind fixing things. And also equipping cross-functional teams, once you do have that money or the go-ahead to fix things, can be very difficult. Sometimes the team may not understand how to do the fix and how to do it efficiently. And so that becomes a remediation bottleneck, trying to get that done within your environment. And then, of course, we all know that penetration tests are point in time. So even if you do get the remediation complete, you have to wait until the next pen test to be able to validate that the fixes that you've tried to put in place were actually successful. And that can be a real challenge. So when we talk about NodeZero, what we are here to do is we are here to, number one, prioritize. We're here to give you clear, prioritized summarization of the impacts that we find during our continuous and autonomous penetration testing that we provide. And we're going to give you, number two there, remediation steps. So for every weakness that we identify, we show you the proof, of the exploit itself. And we're going to give you detailed fix actions to be able to help your team go out and remediate the problems that we find. And we know that response is really important. CISA reports that only 4% of all CVEs have ever been exploited in the wild. That's a crazy number to think about. All the CVEs we hear about all the time, they talk about researchers finding this new vulnerability, but only 4% have been exploited in the wild. And 50% of those are exploited by attackers within the first 2 days. So speed and response time is important. And so that's one of the other problems with having pen tests that are really few and far between, because the damage may already be done if you're only pen testing once a year or every 6 months while your environment is just kind of hanging out and vulnerable to these new vulnerabilities that have come onto the scene. And then validation is extremely important. You know, that was one of the things that kind of got Horizon3 off the ground, was that our co-founders were inside DoD, and they had run penetration testing, and they asked the organization that had done the penetration testing for them within the government, hey, we have done a lot of remediation. How soon can you come back and pen test again and check and validate that our remediation worked? And they laughed at them and said, well, like a year and a half. We got other places we got to go and more pen tests to do. And so that was part of the catalyst that drove our co-founders to create Horizon3, was this idea that we have to be able to continuously assess so that we can validate that our remediations and our fixes are working. So with NodeZero, we have what we call the find, fix, verify loop. And you see there the title on this slide, offense informs defense. So we are going to help you find attack paths in your environment, whether that's in your cloud environment or on-prem. We're going to pivot between those, and we're going to find the paths that the bad guys would use to be able to exploit and compromise your environment. NodeZero chains weaknesses. So it's not just vulnerabilities. It's also weak credentials. It's misconfigurations. It's missing controls. And it's not theoretical. NodeZero is taking all these things and moving through your environment and able to disclose to you the vulnerable attack paths, the ways that a bad guy would move in reality and in the real world in your environment. And then we're going to help you to be able to fix. So after we've done the pen test, we've found the attack paths, we've located all these weaknesses, now we're going to give you a priority list of what you need to fix and what is actually exploitable in your environment. Not a bunch of findings, not a bunch of just a giant list of vulnerabilities that may or may not be important. Remember, we talked about how only like 4% are really exploitable. We're going to give you the ones that NodeZero actually exploited. And this is going to be able to empower you to have your cross-organizational teams be able to fix these problems and to be able to have a much more precise fix as well. So this will accelerate remediation within your environment, and then you can verify. Then you can immediately run targeted retests in the environment. We'll look at that in the demo. And you'll be able to test your defensive tools and see if they're being effective. Our founder talks about NodeZero being a sparring partner. And I love that picture of the idea that NodeZero and your security tool are pitted against each other, right? The security tool is trying to stop NodeZero. NodeZero is getting around that security tool. And now you are able to tune the security in your environment to make sure that you are as protected and that your tools are as effective as possible. And so over time, as you continue to run this loop of find, fix, verify, this is going to increase your cyber resilience within your organization. And it's going to help you with hardening up your systems and your hygiene, your security hygiene, to make sure that your posture is as good as it can be. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how NodeZero works. So we have an agentless architecture. It is easy to get started. We're production safe. You can have your penetration test started in 4 clicks. We need to be able to drop a little Docker container in your environment, and we have a couple ways of being able to do that. Once that's there, you're able to kick your tests off. You don't have to be a pen testing professional. You can have your IT guys, your network guys, just be able to set this up. As long as they know what scope to point it at, they'll be able to kick off the test. You'll be able to see visual attack paths with proof, and we will contextually score the weaknesses that we find with those detailed fix actions based on the attack paths that are found. And we'll look at the one-click verify. It's really, I love the one-click verify, Eric, because I love the fact that they took the whole shopping cart approach we'll look at, where you're literally taking these remediations and dropping them into a little cart and then running them to be able to just see if they have been remediated properly. And then we'll also look at some of the new features that we've added recently, rapid response being one of those, where we're able to safely weaponize zero-day, end-day exploits to be able to help you to do targeted testing in your environment and minimize your window of exposure to emerging threats that are coming out. All right, well, that's that. That's all the slideware we got to go through. Eric, I think we were going to do a poll now.
We are. So we're going to have 2 polling questions, and we just ask everyone to weigh in, and we'll give you a minute or 2 to do that while Josh sets up the demo.
Yeah. Well, and the platform's fast, so setting up the demo is basically done. But I'm interested in seeing what everybody's answers are too here. So how many times you're able to perform a pen test a year? Oh, we do have never on there. All right.
All right, I think I'll end the poll here. We have about 15 responses, which I think is pretty good. So why don't we hit end poll?
Okay.
And I'll share those results.
All right. Once a year is the winner.
Very, very expected results. I'd be interested in some of the people that are able to do quarterly. I guess one of the things to think about as we're going through the rest of this would be, if money wasn't an option, how many times would you test? We didn't really talk about that too much, but our customer base today, because you own a platform for unlimited testing, about 80% of our customers test at least quarterly, and then almost 50% test weekly. So just give you some idea of the flexibility and how we do things. What did we get on immediately with another pen test? Pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Almost 50-50 with waiting for the next schedule. So
oof. That feels like a long time, especially if you're doing that once a year. That's rough. Ryan, any comments on either of those?
No, I mean, look, I think it's pretty common. It's something we see a lot with customers. It's actually why Vandis partnered with Horizon3, because the NodeZero platform gives our customers the ability to test on a frequent basis. It's really easy to remediate. But we actually ended up building a managed service practice built around it, mainly to make sure that customers who maybe don't have the cycles to work on remediation or work on making sure the tests are running and analyzing the test results, that we're there to help, because it's really important to us that our customers are doing this frequently. Because, as you mentioned earlier, Josh, the CVEs are constantly coming out with the NodeZero rapid response platform and everything else that you have. We're able to actually show our customers where they're truly vulnerable, not just where they have CVEs.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in then. And here is the console. We are a SaaS platform, so you log here into the console, and I'm going to hit pen test. That's the screen we're on right now. We're going to hit run pen test. Show you just how easy it is to get one started here. We're going to click on internal pen test for this demo. Really, the main thing that you got to know is the scope. Again, if you've got someone in your environment, you don't have to be a a pen tester or be a security expert, but if you know your environment well enough to just go ahead and either tell it to try to go through the whole environment with intelligence scope, or put the CIDR range in here for the scope, that's all you have to kick off the pen test. There are other options. For instance, putting AWS accounts in scope, because we will pivot to AWS if it's there. If you want a little more open source intelligence, you can fill out the domain company names and things like that. We'll talk about tripwires here in a little bit, but needless to say, this is our deception technology that we have. If hosts are compromised and tripwires are turned on, we will drop a honey token on that host to be able to protect it. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're safe to run in production, but if you want to, as time goes by, if you want to turn on and off a few things with the attack configuration, you can definitely do that. And that's about it. There's a couple other options. And as long as you've got that scope in there, you can click run pen test, and you'll be off to the races and ready to go.
So Josh, just a quick question before you pivot. You said it's safe for production. Would you say
Yeah.
it would still be run off hours, or is it safe enough to run during, a production day?
Here's what I would tell you. I would say that, by the way, I'm gonna qualify myself. Generally safe to run in production, but I would say this: as long as you have good network infrastructure, you're fine. Now, if you know that this is like a small office that only has 20 seats and is just running off some kind of small business router, we even have some options in here to tell it to slow down a little bit. Like, hey, if I expand all here, you can say, hey, go a little slower. Don't kill my network. You can do that. But if you're a normal office, you've got normal commercial grade firewalls in there, you'll be fine.
Awesome.
All right, let's go ahead and look at some pen test results. And feel free, by the way, I'm going quick on purpose. We're keeping this high level, but if you have specific questions, please put them in the Q&A. If there's something you want to see more of, let us know. So we're going to click on some pen test results here. So here's the one I want to use. So when the pen test has concluded, it'll aggregate all the results that come in. And here we go. It's coming up here. Now, we're just going to jump right down here to look at the pretty diagrams, because that's what everybody wants to look at. And over here on the left, you can see in this particular environment, it was 118 hosts. And these are the different exploits that were able to be pulled off. So there was poisoning, there were cracked credentials, there was some SMB things. There were several things in here. Over here, we have the assets that were compromised. So you see there's domain compromise, host compromise. The ransomware exposure is a big deal. The longer I work here and see a lot of environments, even environments that maybe have their domains and hosts cleaned up, have forgotten about the ransomware exposure. And what I mean by that is there ends up being data sources. See like this tab here, data sources that are available that the attacker gets in and they could ransomware. So it's really great to be able to see all of these things kind of at a glance and see how the test went. Now, these are attack paths. Remember, we said earlier that NodeZero does everything from the standpoint of the paths to compromise. So there were 37 domain compromises. We're going to click on it, and we're going to look at one of these domain compromises down here. Here we go. Let's look at this guy. So one of the things I always like to point out here is, for instance, in this case, this one is there's one CVE, and the CVE is this Active Directory certificate service. But to get to that CVE, NodeZero leveraged two weaknesses to get to it. So you can see here that has the H3 on the front. That's because these are weaknesses that we have cataloged. In the case of this Java, this is not a CVE. There's nothing vulnerable here. It's a decision that's been made in the configuration, and that it's a service that's available over an IP, and it's just not protected. And so NodeZero is able to leverage it. So then, if we go over here to the proofs, we can see here, we're going to show you the commands that we run. And this is great for being able to prove what actually happened. So the command and the output. This is the host compromise. you can look at the weaknesses themselves. We'll come back to these in a minute, but it breaks down the specific weaknesses that were here. Here is the attack path that we used. And so again, remember, this one's not a CVE. This is just a weakness, but we leverage it to compromise this host. Then we install a rat in the system. We dump hashes, crack, and CVE that we're able to compromise. And down here, you can get a little more information on that. But if we go up here to weaknesses, we can see here that if I click on this weakness, now I get to go to a page that specifically talks about the weakness itself. I can learn more about it. But here's the big one right here, fix actions. And if I click on the fix actions, now I get instructions and I even get options on how I could remediate this weakness. In this case, I could just turn off this service. Don't leave it open. I could make a whitelist for only the people who need the service. Or I could actually just stick some kind of authentication in front of it. But this helps your team. We're not just giving one way to fix it. We're trying to give your team options so that they can weigh and figure out what is best for their environment. Ryan, I feel like this is one of the big selling points of just, it blows people's mind, I think, the first time when they realize that not only are we going to show them the stuff, but we're also going to help them, figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, this is the page that won me over as a customer of NodeZero. When this page came up, it's like, oh wow, this isn't just like reading about what the vulnerability is. This is actually telling me how to fix it. So, Josh, going back to the attack path for 1 second.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the attacks aren't static, but they're dynamic in terms of how they ramp up and leverage, maybe one vulnerability to get to a final compromise?
Yes, and it's interesting. If I picked a different one here, I could show, and I won't worry about it right now, but there are also attack paths where there'll be two different paths to the same CVE. So we don't stop with just, oh, we got to the CVE, we're done. We're going to exhaust every path we can find through the environment. And we're going to try to utilize all these different weaknesses and show you how an attacker would do the same thing. Is that kind of what you were asking?
That's exactly what I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah. And then that's where I was going, this weakness tab. So if we go to the weakness tab, here we have all the weaknesses we were looking at just listed in one place. And the reason I love this is your priority. When you come to this tab, now you can see over here with attack paths, this poisoning, LLM and R poisoning on this particular pen test was the #1 weakness that was used in the attack paths. And if we click, we even give you some real quick stats here. Oh my gosh, that number is huge. If you would just remediate this, you would break 43% of the attack paths that NodeZero was able to find. And it just kind of keeps going down from there. If I jump on, for instance, the SMB signing, you can see that's 12%. And you can get to those fix actions from here as well. Got another way to jump over and look at them. And also the what we call the downstream. The downstream, if you get the full details, you can see all the downstream effects of this particular weakness. So again, really trying to help that security team, be able to make the decisions necessary to go out and make those remediations. And of course, we have reporting. So let's talk about reporting for a little bit. If I come over here and look at the reports, we've already talked about the fix actions. So I'm going to show you this report first. If I click on the fix action report, this is all of the fix actions in one place. So we were looking at them in the console, but you can also just download the entire report. And as you can see here, it starts with in this case, an SMB remote code execution. And it gives you 4 options here. I love option #1, by the way. Just patch it. Please just go patch this and it's done. But if you can't, it gives you 3 more options for how you could fix it. We've got an executive report. And we have the full pen test report, which I'm just going to jump straight to that because the pen test report includes the executive report in it. By the way, look at this. This guy's 334 pages just for that little 118 host environment. So the executive summary here is going to have that same look and feel that you saw in the console. It's going to be able to let your executive people see, your stakeholders see exactly what was the problem, what assets were affected, top weaknesses, systemic issues in the environment. And then we get down into MITRE, which is basically us saying, look, we're using the up-to-date MITRE attack framework. So these are the real tactics, techniques, and procedures that the real bad guys are using. And then it immediately jumps into the findings. And so the whole rest of the 320 some odd pages are all the findings from the pen test. So very, very thorough report that's coming out the other end. So I went through that kind of quick, Ryan, but anything else you want me to point out on kind of the base product there before I start to show everybody the new cool features that we've
Well, I think one of the areas that we might want to jump into real quick is what happens once we've applied that patch? How do we go back and check to make sure?
Yeah, thanks for setting me up on that, because I just realized you're right. I skipped that one. So let's look at one-click verify. You can see over here, here's the cart. Man, somebody's already been shopping for me, so I'm going to get those out of my cart. But if I go over here, anything that can be verified and fixed from our perspective as we're pen testing and we're adding things all the time, you get this little box over here. So in this case, SMB signing, we already mentioned that. So if I click on this guy, you get a take action over here, and we can add it to our cart, which just like everybody, the cart appears over on the side. And maybe we want to look at this unauthenticated Jenkins. Maybe we fixed that too. So our team did those two fixes, and now all we have to do is come over here to one-click verify. We see the two things we're going to test for, and now we just click run, and we're going to click a one-click verify test that will kick off. And so what this is a pen test that is exclusively looking for SMB signing and this Jenkins script. And so what we're able to do is run a very short test, not the full long pen test, that's able to just check and make sure these remediations worked. And this is great because now we can iteratively run these one-click verifies, go fix something else, check them again, and get in this consistent loop. Hopefully organizations get into a nice muscle memory of doing this loop and getting things remediated.
Nice. So I got one more question before you jump into other stuff.
Yeah.
It's been a mainstay for a long time, but talk to me about the Active Directory audit. So I know you have a pen test that's pretty important here, and that's the Active Directory pen test audit. What do you have there?
Yeah. And so this one had that included in it. So you can see right here, Active Directory password audit right here. And so it is able to connect to your Active Directory, able to pull in the hashes and the passwords from your users. And then it's able to tell you what the methods were that cracked this. And oh man, I can tell you, Ryan, I have seen a couple of super dirty, ugly tests that have come back from organizations that thought that they had requirements in place, but they didn't. Or they have just a ton of passwords that were created before the requirements were put in place and have somehow gotten grandfathered that they didn't even know about. So you can see here, we're checking breach lists, breach passwords, contextual terms, empty passwords. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. A mutation. So we're even checking for mutations of names and things like that. I'm going to go back out and look at this. There's another specific one real quick here because it even has like top 100 bad passwords. And that one was just terrible. This is a smaller one. But here we go. Yeah, so it's the same kind of, there's worst 100 right at the top. Worst 100 passwords. That's not what you want to see. So, yeah, I mean, this one will really reveal some really ugly stuff in your environment. And we all know that really password breach is worse than, or more, what am I trying to say? More likely than a CVE being caught. The password spraying is done constantly, and especially if your users are phished. And anyway, you're absolutely right, Ryan. What I'm saying is this is extremely important.
Okay, awesome.
So the two, well, three new things I want to show everybody. Actually, I guess there's four. Man, there's a bonus. We released in the fall, if you didn't know, Kubernetes pen testing. Won't go into a lot of detail on that, but that is a new option that is available now. So if you have Kubernetes environments, we can pen test those from inside the clusters, which is great because a normal pen test is not going to be inside the cluster. They're just going to attack the external nodes. But we will drop inside and presume a breach on one of your Kubernetes services, and then be able to test from inside your cluster and let you know what's going on in there. And a lot of times it's the same thing. If the developers and your platform team haven't thought about it, there can be a lot of issues when you look at the test from that perspective.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We added rapid response also late last year. And so this one is really big. What we found is that there are lots of CVEs that I call celebrity CVEs. You can see here we tag it in the news. So you're on LinkedIn and you're seeing this new thing that's come up. If you're like me and you like security podcasts, they'll be talking about it. And so what our team does is, you see here a vendor advisory came out. H3 begins their rapid response process, and then they add it to NodeZero, and then now there's a test. So if you think you have Crush FTP in your environment, you can click test now, even if you don't think you have it. Maybe there's some cowboy IT going on and somebody installed it. You get a specific test that is just going to test for this vulnerability, because this is great. Now your stakeholders call you up and say, hey, do we have this in our environment? And you say, hey, I don't think we do, but we ran the specific test. We verified it's not there. We're good. Or it could be the other way. Hey, we found it and we're patching it. We're already, moving on the plan already. The other thing I've heard is, yeah, we ran that test last week. Now we're going to run it again this week to make sure we haven't reverted and that it hasn't come back. But if you look at these, here's the Kubernetes ingress. That one was the same day. It came out on the 24th. They had it in by the 25th. The Apache Tomcat, which is important if you're using that for your application. I wanted to get down here and show, because these are the things that we see occasionally. Cisco iOS remote code execution. If you're running Cisco servers, you're going to need to be able to run things like that very quickly. Couple more. There's a Pano that came out earlier this year. There's a Sonic Wall. So if you've got these kind of devices in your environment and these big ones come out, you need to be ready and be able to launch things like this quickly. And I'll point out, if you've got your environment set up, this is another argument for continual pen testing. You set up your environment. We have these things called runners that allow you to continuously run on a schedule in your environment. And if you have those set up properly in your environment and you click test now, you just point at the places in your environment you need to test and you're done.
So Josh, I have 2 points for you. The first one is, this is a big feature for our customers. A lot of our customers come in and, they see stuff in the news, stuff in the wild, and they want to know what their exposure is, or, they might know they have the vulnerability, but they need to know what their exposure looks like before they can get the patch in place. And this has been instrumental for our customers in terms of determining, like, am I vulnerable to this 40 OS patch or am I not? The other part I forgot for a second, but I just remembered, which is, so you guys are getting this stuff in. What kind of team do you have that is able to put this stuff and turn it around so quickly?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about that. Remember, I said our guys, our co-founders came from DoD, and they brought in, as kind of the last engagements that we were going through over the last decade kind of wound down over in the DoD. A lot of guys started retiring, and we're talking about nation state level, pen testers and guys who really know what they're doing for the American government who are retiring. And so our co-founders drugged them all over and added them to the team. And so now we have this security research team of all of these former DoD and, nation state level guys who are doing this research for us. And some of these on here, right now I'm probably going to miss the one, but I know a couple of these are ours. And so what I mean by that is we are the ones that turned them in. And then we're the ones that actually got the research in first before anybody else did. So our guys are following this closely. They're doing the research. Some of them some of them are their research. Others are, again, you see somebody does a third-party proof of concept. And the way that works is they'll have that out there online. And then our guys, as you can see, once that proof of concept hits the public, our guys within a day are usually able to turn it around, make their own version of it that is safe. Remember, that's what we have to do. That proof of concept might be dangerous. So our guys have to make sure they have a safe proof of concept, add it to NodeZero, and then get it out here for people to use.
So what you're saying is you have a crackerjack red team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, these guys are, I mean, they write their own rat. That rat they use is our rat. I thought one of the impressive things recently is we did our end of the year report, and part of it was us compared to EDRs, and we were evading EDRs without even trying. We don't write active EDR evasion into our rat, but it was still doing it. And it's all written in-house. So our guys are able to do that kind of stuff. It's what
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So say I am compromised, or you're able to compromise it. There's no patch, there's no remediation. What's next?
Yeah. So we have tripwires. So tripwires are, like I mentioned earlier, are deceptive technology. Here's the way this works. There's 2 or 3 use cases for this. Let's say you do a really large pen test, very big environment, and you're just trying to get everything under control. And you don't have time to remediate everything quickly, but there are lots of criticals out there. If tripwires are turned on, then NodeZero, every time it compromises a host, will drop what we call a tripwire. Now, this tripwire is normally like an AWS credential. It's just a file that gets dropped on the machine. And what happens is if a bad guy tries to use that credential, excuse me, my cat's saying hello. If the bad guys try to use that credential, they'll hit our honeypot. And we know what IP they tried to hit from, and we know which machine that credential was dropped on. So we're able to alert you immediately if there is somebody rummaging around in that machine. And that's great, because you may have it may take you a month or 2 months to get through all of your machines and remediate. And in the meantime, you have something on the machine, because the bad guys, that's one of the first things they do. They scan for sensitive data on those machines. They're going to find that AWS cred, and that's going to be just too tempting. In fact, it might even just be automated for them to even try it. So the other use case is if you are in an industry where you have legacy machines. Sometimes you have machines you can't patch because they run machinery, or whatever software you're using on it isn't updated anymore. And so you can't, we've all encountered it. Somebody's got a Windows 2003 server on a virtual machine that they just can't get rid of because of some piece of software. And so having a tripwire on it is going to, at least give you some indication if somebody's doing something on it. The other one is there are those out there that are a little bit suspicious and are worried about insider threat. So if you have some crown jewel machines, you can drop these arbitrarily on some machines that maybe you really care about and nobody should be messing with, to make sure that there isn't any insider threat going on too, for the paranoid out there. That's the word I was looking for.
I mean, it's paranoia, but if you look at, some of the, the threat reports that are out there, insider threat, especially in the public sector, is huge.
Yeah, it is. And so that's another very good, there may not even be any vulnerabilities on that machine, but if an insider threat probably has credentials to get there legitimately. So if you have the tripwire, you'll know if somebody's rummaging around and picking up things they shouldn't be picking up. The last one I'll show, I'm going to flip to my org, and that is Insights. So Insights allows you to be able to see trends over time. Now, I have been with Horizon3 since January, and you can see very clearly when I started running tests frequently here. And so as time goes by, you'll continue to let the insights build up. You can see your criticals, highs, mediums. You can see attack paths over time, whether they're going up or down. Mine are going in the wrong direction because I keep doing more tests. Same thing with remediation here. Not a whole lot to see here, but it'll show over time. And this is what's great. Again, if you are running tests frequently, like weekly or bi-weekly, and you are remediating in between these pen tests, then you're able to show your stakeholders over time, look, we have a mean time to remediation, right? And it'll actually show you the number of days that particular critical or high has been in your environment before you're able to turn around and get it remediated. So that's great. Some other little graphs about weakness by age or by severity. If I had multiple pen tests set up, and I will jump over here real quick. If I have multiple pen tests set up in multiple subnets, for instance, you can actually watch those subnets over time, and you're able to see a graph. Now, these guys haven't had them going over time yet, but here's what it would look like. You would have your, for instance, if you had a management subnet or a user subnet or whatever subnet, right? Development subnet, you can watch each subnet specifically and their statistics over time. So Insights is here to be able to over time be able to show and prove that your team is actually hitting marks, getting things done, and reducing things over time. And I always joke, it might also, like on those subnets, maybe there's a problem child subnet you're able to identify, and you're able to figure out that, hey, for some reason, this one just keeps getting dirty. What are we doing in this environment that we keep getting, new things cropping up all the time?
So let's pause here for a second, because I saw a term on one of those back pages that maybe we haven't crossed. So one of the things that I come across a lot with customers is that when we're talking to them about autonomous pen testing, there's often a little bit of confusion between autonomous pen testing and a CVE scanner. And the KEV versus the CVE. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between, like, why they don't even sit on the same level together?
So tell me just a little bit more about that question.
Sure. So you have the known exploited vulnerabilities versus CVEs, and comparing. What we often have happen is a customer says, well, no, we have, like, I'm going to pick on a poor CVE scanner. I have Tenable. I don't need NodeZero.
Oh yeah.
And what are really the differences between a Tenable, where it's just giving you every CVE in the wild, versus Horizon3, where it's really showing you the KEVs that are out there?
Gotcha. So the big difference is this. I'm going to go back to this big pen test here. So if you're just running a vulnerability scanner, first of all, it's going to give you every vulnerability it finds, even the ones that are never going to get exploited, the ones that are little onesie twosies that are really small, and you're probably going to get a lot of noise, and that's fine. Sometimes you really need to do a complete coverage scan of everything, but what it's not going to pick up, like we pointed out earlier, are all of these things in the test, like we said, that are these H3s. These are all things that are weaknesses. They're not a CVE. For instance, this SMB signing. This is not a flaw in SMB. It's a configuration choice that's been made, or a lack of choice that has been made in this environment. And so now it's being leveraged against you. And this happens all the time. And it's not because anyone's trying to do anything wrong. It's because you'll install a new piece of software, or you'll set up an OS, and you don't even realize that certain configurations out of the box are not secure from that OS or from that piece of software. And when you run your vulnerability scan, it's not reported because it's not a vulnerability. It's just the way it's configured. But what we're showing you is, hey, look, these are the configurations that you have in your environment that we were able to leverage to get a real exploit. So that Tenable, you don't know. You get a whole, or whatever vulnerability scanner, it doesn't matter. You just get a giant list of CVEs back. They're numbered by criticality based on whatever that CVE is. But you don't even know if it's actually exploitable in your environment. You don't know what misconfigurations are out there. So a big difference is what I'm saying between, they have their place, but this is going to show you the CVEs in your environment that can be exploited, and it's going to show you the weaknesses that lead and even lead up to that exploitation.
That was awesome. Thanks.
All right. Eric, anything I've missed or need to add in here, you think?
No, I think we're pretty good. If there's any questions, again, feel free to drop them into that Q&A. Anything else you want to see or something that we didn't talk about, pop them in there. But so far, I haven't seen any.
Okay. If there are, it looks like someone was trying to ask a question. To the individual who's trying to ask the question, please type it in the Q&A panel. Thank you. I don't see it yet, though. We have muted you all on arrival, so unfortunately you can't ask a question live, but you can put it in the Q&A panel. All right, it'll be here any second.
Okay. We're waiting.
Josh, while we wait, maybe you could
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the SaaS platform versus the Docker container and kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
when the Docker container is sitting idle. What's
How that
really
sits?
happening with that runner?
Yeah, so here's what happens. So what we do is you install, and you can do it however you want. We have an OVA, a little virtual machine that we've put together that is just a nice little hardened Docker host. You could just run the Docker directly if you want to, but if you run the OVA, you just set that up in whichever subnet you want it in. And then once that is set up, you'll go in, and I'll show you here. We have runners. So you would come in here and you would, name your runner. Maybe it's, oh man, I'm going to spell things terrible this morning. Management network runner, and we hit submit. And now we get this curl command. And all you have to do is copy this curl command and run it inside your OVA. When you do that, that's going to set up what we call a runner. It's really just a Linux service. And now, as you can see back here, I have several runners that I have set up. And when you run the pen tests, like we said earlier, you will point at the runner that you set up. I'm going to run a pen test. I'm going to go over here to internal again. And then down here at the bottom, I have my runners that I have set up in my environment that have terrible names. I didn't set them up with very good naming. Is always hard in tech. So you select the runner that you want to use. And then after you select the runner, you just hit, you can actually click save template at this point then. So if you select a runner, have all the other configuration in here set up, and you save a template, now you're set up to start running scheduled tests. So once you have them, go ahead.
I was going to say, do I need to have any ingress policies configured on my firewall? You
will. There are a few that you'll want to have set up. We've got them in our documentation, and our team is working constantly to, I'm going to show my bookmark bar here so I can get to my stuff. So we have the network requirements doc, got that on speed dial. And so right here, here's the US based gateway. So we need these domains right now, but they are working constantly to keep shrinking that and making that gateway as small as possible. Right now, they've got it down to 4. You can see there's some static IPs there too, but and they are different. They are different if you're in the US or in EMEA.
But that looks like outbound.
Oh, is it the outbound? Inbound, here we go. We don't, for inbound for the runners, there's nothing, there's that curl's gonna go out. But we don't need any, you have to open the exterior ports is what I'm saying, right? The runner beacons to the SaaS is what I'm trying to say. So there's nothing exterior. It's just going to be outbound to be able to get to those. And then you'll have to let them in if you have some kind of, even with the outbound or whatever, depending on how sophisticated of a firewall you have set up on your environment.
Yeah. Okay.
And we do run into that because believe me, people will figure out how sophisticated their firewall is really quick if it's set up and they start trying to hit it. and then they have to figure out how to open up a couple things. But the runner is just going to beacon out, and as long as you are not specifically blocking those particular sites, it'll work.
That's awesome.
All right. Hey, Josh, we have a request.
Okay.
Could you go back to the fix actions? Probably
Mm-hmm.
show just the SMB one maybe, but just a request to go over how simple the instructions are to follow.
Oh, okay.
Action report.
Let's do that. Here, I'll just get to the
Got
fix
that
actions
tab
report
over
then
there.
right here, and we'll make this a little bigger. All right, so here are the fix actions. So the very first one here is the patch. So in the case of the patch, it's going to give you the KB, which you could Google and figure out. There is a click here for more details, which yeah, that's just the Microsoft. It's going to give you that actual catalog for those. You could look up that KB. You could download if you needed to download it, depending on how you're doing your patching. The group policy. This is great because we're going to give you an explanation here that's going to talk about what exactly has to be done, right? And it's going to tell you, look, we need to update these items in the registry, okay? So, and then you're going to have to configure your group policy. It's going to tell you how to open the group policy console if you've never done it before. It's going to tell you exactly here, like computer configuration, preferences, settings. Like I said, it tries to help you as much as it can. Then remove the dependency. Yep. Down to step 5. It's telling you what to do here. And then here's the group policy information. Same thing. This procedure configures the following new item in the registry. So it's telling you which registry item is going to be, the focus of this. It's what it's going to be configured with. Down here, it's going to show you where to go to get the group policy to create a new one. So there you go. It depends obviously upon the particular fix. Oh, we're still going here. We haven't even got to option 4 yet. Block access to SMB from untrusted hosts. And it even gives you, in this case, it's telling you what was affected in your environment. So this is the print spool.
Yep, that was that did it.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, it does depend on the particular fix, but most of the time, they're trying to give you multiple options.
That's great. And if there are no other questions, we will wrap for today.
Well, there's just a question came in.
Okay.
One more.
Would NodeZero be feasible for a small public library with a fixed cost?
I'm going to answer that from the sales side. With one of my reps in the Southeast in 1 quarter sold to both a Fortune 10 organization and a 15-person nonprofit. So we really scale the gamut. We especially in the smaller IP count, smaller organizations, our pricing with Vandis is set up, especially on the MSSP side, where they can do very competitive pricing for that.
Yeah, we could definitely help you with that. And the answer is absolutely, right? You don't know the misconfigurations you have until it's become a real problem.
Okay.
Yeah, in the case of, man, my mind goes wild. In the case of a library, you have to worry about rogue devices and things like that too, just popping up that somebody's tried to put in there. That feels like you would really want to be continuously checking to make sure no one's done anything silly.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So if there are no other questions, we'll wrap today's session. So Ryan and I would like to thank Eric and Josh for their presentation and demonstration of NodeZero. We would also like to thank you for joining today's session. We hope you found the information insightful on how you can assess your organization's security readiness